Hey there, Goa fans. Mark, DJ Solitaire here with episode 53 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly series in which I present in each episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. And with this episode, we are officially moving into the second year of episodes and moving into my third year in this scene. So the first 26 episodes focused on tracks that I'd come across in the 94-95 season, my first year exposed to this music and art form. And the second 26 episodes, so from I guess 27 to 52, we looked at tracks that I first came across in 95 to 96, thereabouts, roughly. Now we are starting off this 96 season, which was a pivotal time for the scene and also for me. I left Japan in July 96 to spend a few weeks in Canada, and then at the beginning of September 96, I moved to London to be closer to ground zero of the what I thought was going to be ground zero of the musical production and party side of the scene. More on all of that possibly today, but definitely in future episodes. So the track that I'm featuring today has a lot of backstory because it relates to a whole event, and there's a whole lot of story here. So I've been hearing feedback from folks saying they love stories. Well, there's multiple stories that will sort of tie in the whole context of this particular one, and I'm quite excited to share this. So I've been waiting for a while for this one because I wanted to present it in context. So I originally grew up in Montreal, but by the time I left Japan in 96, my immediate family had moved from there. So my sister was living in Vancouver. So when I left Japan, I came to spend some time in Vancouver. And I was going to fly to London, but I thought I would fly through Montreal, visit friends and relatives there before moving to London, right? Because it was en route, so to speak. So back in the day before cell phones, you would make arrangements to meet people or do something. And if there was a challenge with people meeting up on time or being there, you couldn't just text them or call them because you were in the place where you're supposed to meet. So I was supposed to meet a friend of mine in Montreal 1 or 2 days before my flight to London, and he didn't show up. And I was just sort of hanging around in the area, and I was curious, and went to a payphone. They used to have payphones, like those booths that Superman would change in, and put in a quarter and dial the number and phoned his home to see, hey, is he there? What's happening? Nobody there. So I didn't know what was happening. So I was in this area of town where we were supposed to meet, and there was a record store there. So I went into the record store and came across this flyer for Return to the Source in New York. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, when is this? This is in September. When was it going to be taking place? September 21st. Happy solstice. Is it equinox or solstice? It's equinox. So I was going to be, I'm on the same continent in the same time zone in Montreal. And like 3 weeks later, there's going to be this party, but I'm going to be in London where I think all the great stuff's happening. And here is this party, which, I knew of Return to the Source because of the CDs, and I'd heard about the events. And so here is this party. Look, first time in the USA. You want to take a look at this DJ list? Psychedelic Spiritual Trance Masters, they were called. Deck Wizards, Tsuyoshi, Mark Allen, Hallucinogen, Doof, Trancewave, Green Nuns of the Revolution, and then live percussion with Chris Decker from Medicine Drum. And I just saw this and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because that was my second summer in Canada where I observed this incredible dearth, complete absence of the Goa sound, and went to a few club things, met some people, and I was just like, is this really what you guys are listening to? Come on. And so, you know, I was moving to London to get close to stuff. And then all of a sudden, this event is happening on my continent. And I was just like, I can't believe this. What am I going to do? So, of course, I took this flyer. And when I got to London a couple of days later, I continued thinking about it. And I decided that I would fly to New York for this party. So flights were, not that inexpensive at the time. I was surprised how reasonable it was. And, you know, I mean, now, the thought of like, I'm just going to fly overseas for this party. I wasn't the only one. So, but yeah, I did that. I called up a friend of mine who, from Japan, who was then studying at university in Florida. He was a big trance party guy, and told him about it. So he decided to fly up from Florida to come to this party as well. So it was, there was no Facebook messaging, there was no texting. It was, a lot more logistical arrangements. He gave me the phone number of his friend in New York so that I could contact him when I was there, and yada yada. It was, anyway, it was a whole thing. So we all met up, went to this science museum, Liberty Science Center. Okay, so I mean, try to imagine that you're going to a psychedelic trance, Goa style party in a science museum. Is this not what we have all dreamed of? Yes, it was. It was absolutely astounding. Um, the Goa area was in a sort of, it was all carpeted. There was water fountains. It was all like, nice backlighting. I mean, so it was fairly well lit. And there was this four-story atrium. So basically you could see the other floors sort of went around this whole central dance area. So it was just like this super high ceiling. And oh my goodness, it was absolutely jaw-dropping. Now, the Americans who were there were all used to more breakbeaty kind of breakdance kind, sort of stuff. And they were all, in circles where, one person would like dance in the middle of the circle and everybody be watching. And I was there in my fluoro stuff and I would just like dance right through the circle and, let's all just be was really on the mission of everybody's having their own story and we're engaging with each other. But anyway, it was pretty wild. So I got there when I missed the first bit, I guess, I think it was between 11 and 12. So I think it was 11 to 6 in the morning. So I'm pretty sure it ended right at 6. When it would have been, the first part would have been Chris Decker. Then there was Green Nuns. So I came in for that, recognized them and the tunes. After that, I'm just going to look at the lineup here and get my reminder, but it's not the order that they played in here. So after Green Nuns was Transwave. Then there was Doof. After Doof was Hallucinogen. Then was Mark Allen, and then was Tsuyoshi. They only had 1 hour each. Now, I am kind of not a big proponent of this, what's going on now with this tendency towards these 1 hour sets and just packing in these, a gazillion DJs and everybody not really having a chance to tell a story. But in this case, there was something different that was happening. This was an exposure to the very best that the scene had to offer in a way. Of course, there's other great artists, but this kind of poof, everybody comes in and just blasts for an hour and then more and then more and then more. It really worked. So there's a lot that I remember from this party, surprisingly, but also not surprisingly. What I recall specifically was Transwave was playing some of their new album, which had not yet come out. So it was stuff that I didn't recognize. Nick Doof dancing around with his shirt off was very sweaty, and it was hilarious. And then Simon was there with his blue dragonfly shirt, even though Twisted Records was just starting out. And I remember a bunch. We're gonna be hearing some of the tracks that I remember from this party. This was the first time that I heard Gamma Goblins and that I heard the Snarling Black Mabel remix. That I could recognize. I was like, wait a second, I don't recognize this version. Then there was, I remember in Mark Allen's set. So he was the second to last set. And he played that track with a sample that I played at CNA in 2022. The real question now is, can we make it back to Earth by Satori? And the place exploded with them. So all of this is building up, right? I mean, the energy is just ramping up with each one. And then Tsuyoshi is on. I'm getting goosebumps right now. And then Tsuyoshi comes on. And he just drops all this stuff. Certainly I've never heard, and just blows the lid off the place. All stuff that I would come to recognize in subsequent weeks as they would come to be released. So X1 by Process, Psychopod by Psychopod, Boundless by Prana. I would retroactively say, oh, now I remember that. So I remember those melting sounds from the Psychopod track coming in near the end. And then near the end of the party, I'm there with my camera at different times. And I had two cameras. I had a 3D camera, which was this great Japanese thing where it would take 3 different photos and then you could get them developed and superimposed one over the other. And so I've got some very cool photos from there. And then I also had my regular camera. And I happened to have my regular camera and just be in the right place when Simon Posford goes up to Tsuyoshi with a DAT and offers him a track that he hadn't played ever, that he had written before the set and before the party, for the party, that hadn't included in his party. It was untitled, just had Return to the Source on the DAT. And I got this photo of them lining up the track, which is just, for me, it looks kind of historical. I mean, it was really quite a moment. And he puts on the track that would later be known as the Loin King. And that's the track that ended the party. And I'm getting emotional. I mean, it was really something. I mean, really, it was the impression to see North Americans getting it and being completely blown, having everything blown open. And the cheers afterwards. I mean, it was really something. And just the sounds, so when we listen to it, imagine this ending a party and ending, the first experience that people have had and having had that whole progression. It was astounding. So this track would later come to be issued as a release by the Infernal Machine. Now, the Infernal Machine was a project, unfortunately, fairly short-lived, with Dick Trevor and Simon Fosford. So Dick from the Green Nuns and Simon. And the flip side of it was the Loin Sleeps, which, was definitely the two of them, which I first heard at a Matsuri party. I'll be talking about it then in October of 96. But I guess, they wanted to put out that one track that Simon and Dick had done, and they wanted to put this other track out. So they put this on the flip side. Now, when I checked in with Simon just before filming this, he thought that he had done this with Dick, but I remember him telling me previously that it was a solo one. And when you look at the label, it very specifically says that this track is with Walter Ego. So Walter Ego was Simon's alter ego. And Muttley is added to the credits for the other side. Muttley was a cartoon character, and alter ego for Dick. So this is a solo track. So technically, in a way, it's a hallucinogen track because it's a Simon solo. We should add also that I'm going to be guessing now because I have to remember, but I'm pretty sure it's Jiggle of the Sphinx that Simon wrote with Dick also. So there is a track on the second Hallucinogen album on the Lone Deranger, which Simon wrote with Dick. That's the one that's coming to me right now. I think it is that one, but apologies if it's not. I'll check after filming. And so This is basically a hallucinogen track, but you know, it's officially called Infernal Machine. So there we go. And the Loin King, you know, this was just a year or two after the Lion King movie was out. Loining is kind of a British slang and perhaps other slang for, you know, going and, you know, checking out girls or trying to get girls. So, you know, not necessarily related to the musical content, but a fun title, as we often get with Maestro Osford. So, with all of that intro, right? There's all of this background, and I just want you know, as you're listening, you can maybe imagine, you know, that this is like the crowning, the apex of this unbelievable party that was the introduction to New York City of this unbelievable music. Let's listen now to the Infernal Machine, aka hallucinogen in this case, the Loin King. Beautiful, deep kind of voice. Notice the rhythmic stuff after it. And then with the next cycle of 8 bars, great whoosh. Beautiful figuration. And notice the counterpoint with that other part answering. And then, okay, so that beautiful upper riff. Listen to that, the counterpoint with that in the bass line. Minor third in the bass line. And then these whooshes, just razor sharp. Absolutely amazing. Notice this other upper voice that's modulating. So there's the notes that's going on, and then that rhythm. I mean, notice those two rhythms going together. And it's just like this drive for this track. It's just momentum. And so, you know, no actual clear melody yet, right? It's just harmonic stuff going on. And that beautiful phasing that's going on. Get an extra rhythmic layer happening. This is classic hallucinogen stuff. And the tone of that's changed somewhat right now. And then, with that whoosh, these notes are going to be important. There's going to be a riff that comes in later that's all based on this. Again, you know, major, minor. A winning formula. And just listen to the complexity. This rhythm. I'll shut up a little bit so you can actually hear it. Oh, now there's something else that I have to talk about. Just beautiful balance. There's tons of layers going on. And then there's this little pause. And then, right, a lot of the stuff pulls back. So we just have a little bit of it, right? So it helps to build up tension again. And those whooshes. As I've been saying, we need more of those. Now notice the movement up and down with these pieces over here. I mean, just the balance of harmonic stuff again that doesn't have a note that is pitched, and then the different rhythms. And that sort of, you know, goes through everything. all these offbeat, right, syncopated stuff, and then just follow how it goes up and down, and with a rhythm again that's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. And the engineering, I mean, listen how crystal clear this is. So just these 4 notes. The optimism, the enthusiasm, the celebratory, exclamatory nature of this. Just listen how everything fits together so perfectly. Again, imagine this is the end of this unbelievable party where you're first exposed to this music in a science museum in New York, and this is just echoing through the hall. And outdoors. I mean, just imagine this under the stars, right? Just anywhere, and just sort of the anthemic sort of calling out. This wreck. So by this time it's been going on so many times that you're just in this hypnotic loop, and then the kick drops out. And then this ending. Oh, right back at the beginning. After that, the cheers, I mean, really, off the charts. And everybody was yelling out Tsuyoshi's name. And it was, of course, American pronunciation, Tsuyoshi, Tsuyoshi. Everybody's yelling out his name, but it wasn't his track. And this is the challenge with the whole nature of DJing, in a way, right? Anyone who's up there as a DJ owes a lot of what they're doing, let's face it, to the musical producers. So, I think that every time I play, great, I'm glad people are enjoying this, but we're all the musicians who put all of this together, that I would just not be up there if it weren't for that. So, yeah, I was observing that because I saw the setup happen and saw, that Simon had presented him with that deck, that they lined it up together and everything. And this is sort of the invisible nature of what happens. Just like for that party, all the organization that went into that happening, it's all invisible. Like, we don't see all of the people who are responsible for doing that. Who did the decor, who did the visuals, who did the sound, who, organized this stuff, who did the tickets, the people at the ticket, at the door who are taking tickets. There's all of these invisible hands that make it possible for things to happen. But, we would not be here. Of course, you wouldn't be on the dance floor if it weren't for the DJ, but you also wouldn't be there if it weren't for the musicians. So it just highlighted for me, the fact that I think the DJs, and it's certainly I'm not casting aspersions on anybody who was involved in this, right? Tsuyoshi played the most blinding set. And, he and everybody else, there was like the musicians made this music. And so it's just, the public, I think, doesn't always recognize that. So I just wanted to point that out because that was my thought at the time when I heard, his name being chanted, which I was thrilled by because it's like, you know, this is it was like the fourth time that I heard Tsuyoshi. I heard him at a party in Japan just before I left. So, but it was just that whole sort of like, wow, so thrilled that they were hearing one of my idols and they were hearing all of these idols of mine. And yeah, it was a magical event. I gather that as clean and wonderfully, pretty well maintained the Goa area was. The other areas in different rooms were not as well maintained. And just, how they talked a science museum into hosting this event. And I don't know the full story of what happened afterwards, but you can certainly imagine a lot of insurance was involved. Because not everything was in pristine condition afterwards. Same science museum, by the way, if you watch the first X-Men movie at the end, some of it is filmed in there. It's Liberty Science Center. So when they're in the Statue of Liberty, but it's actually, there's a science center that they're in for part of the lead up to that. So it's certainly how we felt there. It was like very science fiction. It was really magical. And it was 110% worth me going there from London and then back. Because I ended up meeting people there who I connected with in London. As an experience, I mean, right now, the emotion that's coming up, and my exposure to, in a sense, what I see that I've been trying to carry the torch for, in North America, and seeing, some people really get it, a lot of people really don't, and see, that spark start to happen. There were people on the dance floor who were, pulling me over, of course, because I looked like was very colorful with the clothing I was wearing. And they were just like, what is this? And I was like, I've been there. I was definitely in that state. And it was just really cool to see, these eyes widening. And, everybody, not criticizing that they were doing the circles. I mean, it sounds like that, but everybody was doing what they could. Everybody's like there enjoying it in the way that they could. And I think they were starting to sort of recognize, okay, this is different. This is not the same music. It's not the same kind of energy. How do I engage with this? It was all pretty amazing. So y'all wanted stories. You got stories. That was, the start of that party was, in a sense, the start of my time in London, in a sense, even though I was at two events the weekend before I went to this one. And we'll be touching in on that when I went to Return to the Source, actually, in the UK, before going to it in New York. So there we are. Absolutely jaw-droppingly unbelievable, magical production by the great Simon Posford. I'm not sure he likes this track quite as much as I do. I think it is the bomb. So much going on. And, for me, obviously, where I was describing it, I think, I was really tying in that personal recollection. I mean, there's what there is in the music that stands apart from personal experience, right? So for me, it's really linked with that triumphant ending of like, oh my gosh, this just entered the consciousness of so many North Americans who just did not see this coming. And the fact that the music itself really has all this rich content already independently of that event. Absolute magic. So here we go. I am going to sign off. I'm just going to give a little heads up that I am going to be on a plane to Goa. very shortly. So here I am, like I'm going off actually to Goa for the first time. It's my 30th anniversary in this scene, first time going to Goa, and certainly first time playing there, since it's the first time I'm going. So there'll be a break in this kind of episode, because I don't think I have the time to film anything else. But we'll see if I do anything else. And if in the meantime I don't, you'll be catching me when I'm back. All right, so thanks so much for tuning in, Mark DJ Solitaire, and I'm gonna leave you now with the complete masterpiece released by the Infernal Machine, the Loin King.